Let me tell you a story. When I was in high school, I was part of a community, and it was really, really hard. Hey, welcome to The Big Idea, a time where every week we get to spend a few minutes trying to wrap our minds around one big idea from the life of Jesus. This week, we're continuing to look at the way that Jesus approached community. So this community that I was a part of, it was a small group at my church, and it was made up of all these really, really different people. We all had different ideas and opinions and beliefs about everything, but especially about Jesus. See, some of us in the group, we were all in and we wanted to follow Jesus and grow closer to him and in our walks with him. And others, they didn't have really any interest in Jesus at all. And they just wanted to be a part of the community for the fresh baked chocolate chip cookies and the friends they had there. And as you might imagine, this made things kind of challenging in the group because we were all in these very different places and we all wanted something different out of the community. And me, eventually I started feeling like what I wanted out of the community just wasn't going to happen. See, over time, I started to feel disappointed. I started to feel let down, like what I was wanting to get out of the community wasn't good enough. Like the community would never meet the needs and the expectations that I had. And over the years of feeling this way, eventually I came to the conclusion that community just wasn't worth it. And over time, I got to the point that I decided to just give up, and I walked away from my community. After a little while, though, something in my heart began to change towards that community, and I decided to re-engage. I decided to fully commit, and I started showing up even when it wasn't convenient. I started working through hard things and disagreements and places where I just felt like it wasn't what I wanted. Even when it wasn't easy, I decided to show up, and it was hard, it was messy, it was disappointing. There were times that I had to forgive people who had hurt me, and there were a lot of times that I had to ask for forgiveness from people that I had hurt. It certainly was not an easy experience, but it was worth it. And thinking back now, knowing what I know now, if I could change anything about my community, I wouldn't go back and make everybody like me. I wouldn't go back and make sure that everybody liked each other. In fact, the one thing that I would change is my own commitment level. See, if I could go back and change anything, I would have been all in. I never would have walked away from my community because even though it was hard, even though it was messy, even though it was disappointing, what I know now is that community changed everything for me. That community changed everything for me. It was in that community that God called me into ministry. It was in that community that I continued to make my faith my own. It was in that community that I learned how to love well, how to offer forgiveness, how to ask for forgiveness. That community changed everything for me. My college roommate, the guy who stood next to me in my wedding, who I still consider a brother today, came out of that community. That community changed everything for me because that's exactly what God designed community to do. Let me show you what I mean. In the book of Acts, we get a glimpse into the first followers of Jesus and the lives that they lived. We get to see the way that they did community. And let me tell you, community was important. In Acts chapter 2, we see this. They devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching and to fellowship, to the breaking of bread and to prayer. All of the believers were together and had everything in common. They sold property and possessions to give to anyone as they had need. Every day, they continued to meet together in the temple courts. They broke bread in their homes and ate together with glad and sincere hearts, praising God and enjoying the favor of all the people. And the Lord added to their number daily those who were being saved. And what we see from these verses is that from the very beginning, a community was absolutely essential to the first followers of Jesus. They organized their lives around community. They were getting together every day. They were eating. They were celebrating. And what we find out is that community changed everything for these people. You see, people who before their community had never had a place where they belonged, they found a home. People who had nothing found a place where they could be cared for. People who had everything, who were rich, learned to live generously. Community changed everything for these people. They suddenly had something to celebrate. They had something to dedicate their lives to. They had a place where they could grow closer to Jesus. And most importantly, there was a place where people were coming to know Jesus. For these first followers of Jesus, community changed everything. But it didn't stop with them. You see, over time, as this community continued to get together, eventually people started to go out. And they went all over the world telling other people about a guy named Jesus who offered forgiveness of sins and a better way to live. And this community began sending people out. And everywhere they went, people began to hear the message of Jesus and they began to follow him as well. Wherever the gospel of Jesus went, community came with it. And suddenly there were other communities of Jesus followers popping up all over the world. And as these communities communities began, they began to change things as well. And now people all over the planet were finding a place where they could belong. We're finding a place where people would care for them, a place where they could learn to live generously, could learn to live like Jesus, and where other people were beginning to know Jesus too. Community changed everything because that's what community does. It changes everything. And friends, what I want you to know today is that community can change everything for you too. Right now, you have the opportunity at the link below in the description to register to be a part of a life group. And life groups are an opportunity for you to do life together with other people. They're a chance for you to experience community. And man, I know that right now there are all sorts of questions and all sorts of confusions about how exactly this is going to work. But here's what I do know. Even now, community still changes everything. Even now, community is still essential. And so I hope that you will choose to be a part of a life group. I pray that you will decide that community is how you want to live your life. I pray that you will decide that no matter what it costs, no matter how awkward, how hard, how messy it gets, that you will be a part of a community because community changes everything. You were never meant to live life alone. You were meant to live life together.